Yes, my friends, welcome back. In today's latest reports, finally, Pochettino is set to become our manager once the season ends, and he's agreed to signing a 3-year contract. I'm going to break down the latest news, I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions, and we're going to discuss the board as well as they admit to their mistakes they've made during the season. Now, forgive me for how I'm sounding right now. I had a bit of a messy night last night for my guy's birthday, so I'm on recovery mode at this point in time. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you guys are excited for the future right now. And of course, share your thoughts and opinions too behind Pochettino. So without wasting any more time, let's start things off and let's break down the news first. And Pochettino has agreed a deal now to become our new head coach for next season, and he signs a 3-year contract. Now, compared to the 5 years that Graham Potter signed with us previously, I think this is the wise decision to make because, you know, it's a massive commitment when you're given contract lengths past 3 years, in my opinion. So I think this is more than enough time for Pochettino to stamp his authority, make things happen here, and hopefully start fixing some of the errors and mistakes that we've been known for over these past few seasons. As we know, Pochettino will commence his work once the season ends, and he's going to be joined by his trusted backroom staff. They include guys like Jesus Perez, Miguel De Gastino, Tony Jimenez, and Sebastian Pochettino, the son of Mauricio Pochettino. Pochettino will work alongside our sporting directors, and I think it's quite interesting now that both Ravel and Stewart are known as sporting directors now. And I think it's a fair role and title for both these guys. And Pochettino is set to hold talks with Frank Lampard, who, as I keep saying, he was hired as an interim to monitor things, to help bridge that balance between, you know, what's happening right now and to help the new manager once he takes over Lampard once the season ends. So Pochettino is going to be talking to Lampard to gauge the squad, the personalities, you know, his thoughts and opinions, etc., which is, you know, a very fair thing to do. And after all these years of Pochettino hoping to get this job, like, he's finally got it right now. And compared to other candidates like, you know, Nagelsmann, Enrique, etc., the reason why Pochettino was picked over these guys is simply down to this. You know, they feel like he complemented the club's vision best compared to all the other candidates, and he fits the vision of a joined-up club, an interconnected club, you know, a club that is working together from, like, you know, Cobham to the first team. And traditionally over the past few years, or even longer than that, the first team has been its own completely separate entity from the rest of the club. And I've kind of felt like that's been a mistake that we've been making. I mean, look at Man City currently. I mean, they've really boosted their academy level over the recent years. And right now, you know, the academy matches the philosophy of the first team. And look at massive institutions like Barcelona. Look at, you know, renowned clubs like Lyon. You know, a lot of these clubs, you know, the philosophy, the implementation starts from the bottom and goes right to the top. So it makes sense that we hire someone that fits that type of vision that we want to have. The other candidates assessed, most of these guys only care to work with the first team only, and that's something we're trying to move away from now. And for me, it's promising news when I'm reading things like Pochettino and this club's management. They share the same pages, they share the same thoughts and opinions, they have the same vision, you know. Both the management and our head coach, they have ambitions for us to become like a youthful team with high energy that plays great football. And to make that happen, you need to hire the right coach that is going to be able to cultivate this talent to help them improve whilst getting them playing the right style of football that suits their needs. And this is why Pochettino is seen as someone who categorically is the best fit for right now. And his success with developing young players at, you know, Southampton, Espanyol, Spurs in particular as well too, you know, the rise of Son, Kane, and many of these guys, this gave the sporting directors a lot of confidence that, okay, this profile is the right one for what we need right now. And as we've seen with all the recent business we've done, we're signing some of the best under 23 players in Europe and across the world. So we need the right manager to get the best out of these guys, because we're spending big money on them for their potential one day, not for their current ability. We can't forget that. And if these guys can't go to that next level, if they can't achieve their potential, then we're basically wasting our money. So for me, right appointment. Now I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions on Pochettino for the final segment for today's video. But right now, let's move on to the next report. Let's discuss the mistakes made by our board this season, who have held their hands up and admitted to the mistakes. So let's break down these reports. I feel like these reports are quite insightful and they give like a bit of a fair painting and picture behind how this current season has become like it has. So to start with things, there were some comparisons made between Tuchel and Pochettino. And interestingly enough now, in hindsight, the board probably wouldn't have sacked Thomas Tuchel during the time that they actually did. Yes, there were like clashes of personality differences and clashes in communication as well too. And Tuchel was described as someone who doesn't necessarily address things then and there when there's an issue that he has. Instead, he kind of broods on it instead. And I guess that communication imbalance is something that in the long term wasn't necessarily going to be the best fit for this type of interconnected club model Boehly and co are trying to build now. And to be fair, I probably agree with that. I do think that, if the goal is to secure Champions League football this season, then it would have made sense in hindsight to keep Thomas Tuchel, because even though I had criticisms with the style of play at times, it was a style of play that many guys are familiar with, and we still have to do our job of securing Champions League football, which we now don't have. Now, some people might think to themselves, well, Nini, why not sack him before the season started? I think that's a little bit unfair, because we have to remember that a lot of these things were developing in real time as time was going on, post-sanctions. And it's not like you can predict that you're about to fall out with Tuchel, right? So I don't really agree with that. And at the same time, reports do offer more insight behind the difficulties of navigating the club, post-sanctions. For example, was it the best decision to let Marina and Petr Cech and all the previous staff members leave us instantly like that? Well, we have some answers. One of the main reasons as to why Marina had to go actually was due to the fact that it was politically impossible for her to remain here due to her very close ties to Roman Abramovich, which she has known now for decades. And of course, once it was agreed upon that Marina would have to go due to those reasons, Petr Cech was offered the opportunity to remain here, but of course, due to his loyalty to Marina and co, he decided to leave as well too. And this put us in a very interesting position, because it meant that we had no one to really help us maneuver the transfer market. And if you remember reports back in the day, we were looking at Michael Edwards, the former Liverpool sporting director, to come in during that time in the summer to help us do our deals, but he turned the offer down. And this kind of forced our hands, and this is why Todd Boehly became the interim sporting director at the time. And that's why he turned to figures like Thomas Tuchel to help him during those difficult times, of course, to get signings and get players in. And that's why he offered Thomas Tuchel the opportunity to sign the players specifically that he liked, that he wanted. Hence why players like Cucurella, Sterling, Koulibaly and Aubameyang were signed for Thomas Tuchel. Now, it was recognised at the time that maybe in the long term, Tuchel and this board probably wouldn't see eye to eye or work out eventually. And I guess forcing so much change in a short amount of time eventually made us pay the price for this season. Let's keep things brutally honest. The board wanted to push as much change as soon as possible, and I guess it was too much in a short amount of time. I think this is why we've seen so much confusion behind our way of playing, identity, tactics, team lineups. How many different formations and different player rotations have we seen throughout the season? It's pretty impossible to have very high standards when you haven't even got those key foundations set in stone yet. But at the same time, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom, because the business we did in January, this is the type of business that can set us up for the next 5 years very easily. We took advantage of exploiting FFP loopholes to incredible effect. All the players were on long-term contracts to reduce their player costs per year, and the deals we did were structured with high base fees and installments over time. So technically, this would mean that if some of these guys didn't even fulfill their potential, it wouldn't be that hard to actually let them go, because their player costs are so low that you're bound to get an instant profit from their sales. And I mean this because, if a club wanted to sign someone that fell, for example, their player costs are so low that they could find an installment package with us. And as long as it is greater than our player costs we're playing for some of these guys, then we're in the clear accounting wise. So I think it's good that this board are quite transparent and they can confidently put their hands up to admit certain mistakes made instead of pretending that nothing's happening and that they can't do any wrong. I think that type of transparency with the fan base is an important thing. They've definitely understood the power of the fans and keeping them happy too. And you know what? No one's necessarily perfect, but even though they've got some things wrong, I still think that some of the things they're doing for the long term are the right things that, a few years from now, we're going to look back at this time and be like, you know what? That was a wise decision. So now that we end things, I want to share some thoughts and opinions behind the announcement and the appointment now of Mauricio Pochettino. And to keep things very sweet and short, I think that this is the most responsible appointment to make. Because for me, you know, in this game, yeah, it's not about the name, like the brand. It should be like whose tactical ideas, training methods and philosophy fits the squad we actually have. You know, all the players we're signing, we're not signing these guys to play slow type of football. These are guys that can allow you to play higher up the field, right? So if you want to play higher up and take advantage of this type of energy you have in the team, you have to be better in terms of how you're breaking teams down offensively, in terms of how you're suffocating the opposition in the final third, in terms of your pressing structures off the ball, and of course the passing patterns and the combination plays you work on in training sessions, of course, to get these guys building some understanding. And I think the only way to do that right now, which I think Pochettino is probably going to get right finally after all these years, is focusing on core attacking principles right now. What do I mean by that? Decide how you want to attack. Like, we've had so many like different profiles in attack, like attacking mids, wide playmakers, wingers, strikers. On paper, these guys are amazing individuals, but to build a team, an attacking identity from so many different profiles, it has been like an Achilles heel for us now for a very long time. And under Pochettino, this is a guy where we all kind of know how he plays, right? You know, very high pressing football, very aggressive, tons of running. Look how fit that Spurs team was. Like, I remember his mid-block Spurs teams really causing us so much like damage under Antonio Conte. And he likes to have quick combination plays with his wide forwards, and he needs a striker that can link up with that attack, you know, create opportunities for them as well as scoring goals too. So I feel like you look at the team they're currently trying to build, the reports we're looking at, some of the players we're looking to sign in the next window. You know, we want to use pace out wide with actual wingers with goal threat. We want a striker that can link these guys up as well too. And of course, that midfield, getting that right is another key detail that we have to do to really just complement the attack we're trying to build. I feel like under Pochettino, I feel pretty optimistic. I'm not going to say confident. I don't want to get carried away, especially after a season like this we're having, right? But I feel optimistic that his ways of playing is a type of way of play that a lot of the players actually respond very well to. And another key fact is that this guy complements what the boards and what the staff are trying to build here. You know, as someone that wants to connect the club together. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Pochettino develops the youth as well. That's one of the best things about his management over his entire career. He knows how to make young players better. He knows how to demand more from these guys, to improve the intensity, to build that togetherness in his teams as well too. And I think that's most definitely things we're going to need now as we're looking to cut this squad down. And I do think that Pochettino, and hearing the facts that, you know, his ideas actually reflect the ideas of the staff, I think how often do you really get these appointments where everything is really in sync? Well, that's what the reports are suggesting right now. And for me, I can't help but feel excited by stuff like that. Now, I'm hoping for an incredible preseason. I'm hoping that now that we don't have Champions League football or European football now for next season, there's going to be like a bit of like a saving grace of Pochettino, because he's going to have even more time every week now to prepare his team against oppositions. And the last time that happened, we won the league under Antonio Conte. I'm not saying that's the same thing, but normally a lot of great things can happen in the season if your preseason is on point, if that works. And I think with the preseason tour we're about to have in the States, we're not playing against like, you know, the best teams, most marketable teams. We're playing against teams where it's like, okay, range of different tactical approaches. If we're successful and hopefully win all those games, the confidence for the start of next season is going to be absolutely unreal. So again, we welcome Mauricio Pochettino as our new manager. It's been a long time in the running. You know, we tried to hire this guy when he was still the manager of Tottenham, but we got told that it would cost 50 million at the time, and it couldn't happen. So Pochettino has always been incredibly open to signing for us. Spurs was just another job for him. You know, this guy was never going to remain there for his entire career. I mean, absolutely not. He always had his eyes on progressing up the ladder and doing bigger things, and that's why he's responded incredibly well to every approach we made for him over the past few years. So I don't think we should be holding his history with Spurs against him at all. I mean, come on, let's not like have our ambitions down that low, my guys. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm okay with this. How do you feel about this appointment? Let us know below, and of course, stay tuned for another video coming out in the next hour. So on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.